Full Metal Furies is an action RPG from the creators of Rogue Legacy. You can play with up to 4 players either in offline or online co-op, or just solo if you'd like, and it takes place in a world that's at war. Mythological creatures called Titans, like Minotaurs and so forth, have descended upon the Earth, sending it into chaos. You play with a small team of 4 known as the Furies, who are on a mission to try and stop them and bring peace to the world through defeating them. The story is very lighthearted and not serious at all. It's told through text dialogue, with characters bantering, oftentimes teasing and joking with each other constantly. It also uses a ton of puns and stuff that really give this game a very lighthearted comedic feel, and if you're really into that kind of stuff, you're going to love this game because it's really aimed at that audience. Overall, the story is not really the greatest anchor of this game, like the gameplay is. It's not really going to draw you in all that much. It's kind of just a vessel to carry you through, and while I did appreciate the comedic aspects of it, it's not that amazing. The story also contains one of the biggest issues of this game, which is that it's not particularly well structured. Basically, half of the game is a more linear progression, in which you'll have a world map that you'll follow along, completing different objectives and going to different areas, with a little bit of choice depending on what order you want to do them in. Towards the end of the first half of the game, it transitions and you find out that it's not actually the real ending of the game, even though it feels like an ending. And that's because there's a whole nother boss and whole nother area you can go to, but you have to go back to the areas you were previously in and collect different tablets that'll unlock different things through riddles. It becomes more of a puzzle game at this point, having you go around and collect these different tablets to find out what they are, reading the clues to try and find out where they might be, so that you can actually then get on to the other half of the game. And some people are really going to like this, and some people are definitely going to dislike it. Personally, I found that the genre shifting made the game feel very odd and disjointed. Now moving on to the gameplay, this is one of the areas where the game actually does a pretty decent job. You've got 4 different classes you can play as: the engineer, the sniper, the tank, and the fighter. They all have very different ways of playing. The tank is more tanky, it uses a shield which it can use to block but also smash into enemies. The fighter is more of a brawler, getting in there and smacking her hammer around. The engineer can deploy things like turrets and mines. You've got the sniper that can snipe things from afar, doing a lot of damage. All these have very different and interesting, unique mechanics that really make it more engaging to play. And as you progress, you'll gain coins which can be used to purchase upgrades, like more damage for different abilities, or new equipment that'll give you slightly different abilities, like getting the ability to turn your jump into a dive bomb that slams enemies, or turning it into a backstep that allows you to back up as the fighter. These are different and unique, interesting twists that really give a lot more longevity and replayability to your character. The enemy variety is also pretty decent for the most part. There's a ton of different enemies. You'll have enemies that can call down airstrikes. There's shielded enemies that will require you and your friend to try and strategically take out targets. There's enemies that have different bombs and attachments. There's robots. There's all sorts of different crazy enemies that you'll run into that have different and unique mechanics that really reward skill and knowledge of your enemy. You'll also fight a number of different bosses that all have interesting and unique mechanics, like Koyas, who shoots rockets out of his back that you have to dodge. They all have very different feels to them that really makes them each feel different and unique, and also make sure that each one is a unique and interesting challenge because of the different mechanics they have that require you to learn. Co-op in particular is an area where Full Metal Furies does a pretty good job. They've made sure that each class feels unique and different, but also benefits each other. So certain classes can help one another fight particular enemies, and also you can do interesting combos, like launching enemies into the air so that the fighter can then juggle them around with their spin attack. There's interesting ways to do things like that where you can combo together your abilities to really help one another. They've also added a shield system that's pretty cool, where some enemies will be locked to a particular player, has to damage to break, so you have to kind of divide up your attention and work tactically together to try and defeat enemies. Graphically, Full Metal Furies is decent, but it's not going to blow your mind away by any means. It has a real charm to it, and it really owns that sort of more comedic, lighthearted feel with its more cartoony style. Overall, Full Metal Furies gets a 7 out of 10. It's a decent game that does some things very well. I really like the co-op play, the 4 classes feel very well designed and interesting, it's got decent enemy variety and a pretty interesting world, but there's just a couple things that really hold this game back. I really disliked how about halfway through the game it genre shifts into a more puzzle game, and I'm not really a fan myself of replaying through old content, so I found that this game became a real drag when it came to halfway through and I had to go back and replay through a bunch of old missions to try and find the tablets and solve the mysteries. If you're into that kind of more puzzle stuff, you're going to like that a lot. But personally, if you're someone like myself who doesn't really like replaying through content or doesn't really like puzzle games very much, you're going to be a bit disappointed when it gets to that point. And while I did really like the comedic, lighthearted feel of the story, it was certainly funny at times, it does feel like oftentimes it falls flat, with the jokes not really paying off at all.